Hello, my name is Rain and welcome to my channel where I discuss Fantasy Formula 1. It is 1:30 a.m. I have just finished my watch along of the sprint qualifying. And I mean, a lot of things happened. So I discussed a lot of things in my video or in the live stream, in the discussion part of it. But I thought I would make this quick video just talking about which chips you should use, like the which chips are best and how you use all of them, because I had so much to discuss for each of them that I couldn't get to them in the sprint quality watch along, and I thought I would just condense them into a video. So if you tomorrow when you wake up are wondering which chip is the best, hopefully you can find this video. Maybe you won't, and maybe I'm staying up to 2 a.m. for no reason, or 3 a.m. to edit, but I mean, I got inspired, so I'm doing it. We're going to be talking about this in the prospect of my second team here. I still haven't decided what I'm going to do with my main team. If you want to see that, I am doing a pre-deadline stream at 1 p.m. Central Eastern Standard Time tomorrow or today when you're seeing it on Saturday, right? So you can probably already see the live if you go to my channel. It's up there and ready to go, so you can click the notification button and get the notification when I'm going live, as I'm going to be away for Saturday evening. So there's no regular deadline stream today. It is actually a Saturday for me, as it's 1:30 a.m. Let's quickly talk about the chips, right? So this is my second team, right? But I've used most of my chips here. But the first one we're going to talk about is what I think is worse, right? So if you didn't watch the sprint qualifying, you should go and watch the sprint qualifying. I'm going to assume that you know what happened in the sprint qualifying. The no negative chip, I've always said, is a really, really good chip for sprint weekends. But because of what happened with Piastri starting from P16 in the sprint, the no negative didn't get any better, right? The no negative is still as good as it was previously in a sprint weekend, but the prospect of Oscar Piastri starting from P16 has boosted the value of almost all other chips. So for that reason, I think the no negative is tossed aside, and you should definitely not use the no negative here. If you still have it, you should use it in one of the future weekends, either Brazil or Qatar. So that's my no negative spiel. Let's quickly talk about the wildcard. I mean, the wildcard is always good if you need to use it. But again, for the similar reason to the no negative, all other chips are so much more powerful now because of what happened in the sprint qualifying, that I don't really see you need to use it here unless like you're looking to take a -30 to get what you want. Like in that case, use the wildcard if you have it. But if you have your wildcard, I wouldn't use it here. I would try to get by with free transfers and use any of the other more powerful chips. Then let's talk about the autopilot chip, right? Autopilot. I've been saying that the autopilot chip, you could foreseeably use it in literally any weekend imaginable where you have two good drivers, like two premium drivers in your team, because it feels like any of them can outperform the other at any given point, right? So the example I've given previously is that if you have like Norris plus Leclerc and you don't know if McLaren or Ferrari are going to be the fastest that weekend, using the autopilot could be really strong. Now, normally when you have like Norris and Piastri from the same team, I wouldn't actually use the autopilot because, right, I think Papaya rules is out the window now, so they're going to give favor to Lando Norris. And for that reason, there's no reason to use the autopilot there. Like, you can't predict a DNF. Obviously, if Norris DNFs and Piastri wins, unlucky for you, but you can't predict that. So you're going to have to try and use the autopilot when you actually don't know which team is the fastest. Now, that changes slightly here, right? Because if Norris isn't that fast, like Piastri has a lot more upside with his bad performance in the sprint qualifying. But if he, does that again and has a poor regular qualifying and starts like P7 and ends P7 in the main race, obviously his points total and points potential is lower than. One thing important to note though with McLaren, I've said this multiple times, like McLaren, Norris wasn't bad in the qualifying, like he was 4th, right? And I think Piastri, without his mistake, would have also been around that point, right? I think he is even to the other drivers. And this has been the case with McLaren like all year. When they've had the fastest car, they've not been dominant in the qualifying, right? But in multiple races, they've shown their race pace, their long runs on the tires, like the hard tires, like Norris did a fast lap on like 54 lap old hards. The power of the McLaren car is in its race pace. So yes, they've come with upgrades that don't look like they're working that well, but that's still qualifying pace. They still should probably have the race pace that we expect them to have. So for that reason, I'm expecting McLaren to still perform, right? So the autopilot definitely has increased its value in the chaos that is the sprint weekend. But I still think other chips are better. let's talk about the final fix, right? So the reason we're talking about the final fix is that when you final fix something, you gain the new driver for the rest of the weekend. And this is where Piastri gets good, because I think Piastri is by far the best option in the sprint race. And I don't even think that's controversial to say. If he goes from P16 to P8, which I think is definitely possible, even on a low number of laps, that is 17 points if he does all the overtakes himself, right? 17 points. Whereas Max Verstappen winning is 8 points. Norris winning from P4 is only 14 points, whereas Piastri getting P8 would be 17 points. So, again, obviously, maybe someone DNFs ahead of Piastri and then it's only 16 points, but you get what I mean. Like, there's a lot of points potentials there, and even more so if someone in the top sort of Formula A were to DNF and Piastri can actually, like, get to a P, like, an unimaginable P6, right? In that case, he's way more powerful. But even in the case where, like, where he only gets to P10, like, that's still 12 points, right? And 12 points compared to Norris has to win over Max Verstappen to get 14. Norris P2 is less than, it is 1 point less than Piastri at P10. And I definitely think Piastri is getting at least to P10. So for that instance, autopilot is better. But what I mean with the final fix is then, like, yes, you want Piastri in the sprint race, but if you don't think he looks good enough this weekend to then run as your 2x, for example, for the rest of the weekend, you could go in with the plan to have Piastri and then have money in the bank to either upgrade him to Norris or upgrade him to just side grade him to Leclerc or downgrade to a Hamilton after you've seen the main qualifying. So you could get the 2x on Piastri and then transfer him out with the final fix and then have a better option for the qualifying and the race, or just the race if you want to watch the main qualifying before making your decision. So I'm actually going to check here, like, what I can do with my main team, right? Imagine I sell Lando Norris here, right? I use my transfer to sell Lando Norris. I bring in say Charles Leclerc, right? Because it's the same price. So just so it's even. But, like, this could be Lewis Hamilton as well. I think either or is fine. But let's say Charles Leclerc for the sake of it. Then you put the 2x on Piastri, and then you final fix Lando Norris in. Lando Norris now has the 2x. You've used the final fix. You have Piastri's high points in the sprint, but you have Lando Norris' higher ceiling in the race, because I think if any one of Lando or Piastri is winning in the main race, I do think it's Lando Norris that's more likely to do so. And then, by just automatically, he's then the better candidate for getting driver of the day as well, and such. So this is an option, and I don't even think it's that bad of an option to go in with the plan to get Lando Norris in on that 2x spot after you've used it on Piastri in the main race. I actually think that's super valid, especially if you're on a kind of strategy where you want to save the 3x for Brazil. I definitely think the final fix could be a good plan to use here in this race. Let's then talk about the Limitless. I think the Limitless is by far the most powerful chip that you can go for right now, right? And the reason for that is, back in China, I've made multiple videos, and in multiple videos and multiple streams, I've talked about how sprint races favor C-tier assets. Well, this one doesn't. Why? Well, you have Hamilton starting P7 behind Hülkenberg. Definitely going to overtake Hülkenberg for P6, right? Just that in itself is a 5-pointer, or a 6-pointer even. Yes, 6-pointer. No, it's a 5-pointer. 5-pointer. So that's a 5-pointer for Hamilton. So Hamilton has some options there. Then you have Checo starting P11. I mean, he should definitely get up to like a P8, right? At least. That's 3 points, 1 point. That's a 7-pointer. Now, I don't know if you want to go for Checo Perez, in the race after, but it is an option. And then obviously Piastri. And the main thing also is that Max Verstappen looks good, right? Max Verstappen starting pole in the sprint. He's probably winning the sprint, right? I don't think Lando Norris is passing him. Maybe he will, but, like, even then, this is like a 6-pointer in the sprints. And then, I mean, Max just cooks in qualifying and is really good. Is probably going to at least contend for a podium in the main race. So having the possibility to now go for Max Verstappen when a lot of people are not going to have him is really powerful. And again, having Red Bull Racing, since Max Verstappen is strong, and then Checo is also strong in the sprint race, I think Red Bull Racing, the constructor, alongside of McLaren could be really strong. So the team I would go for, I can't show you it here on the screen, and I'm not going to do too many edits, so I'm just going to talk straight through this and just tell you so I can get this video up and go to bed. I think I would definitely go for triple McLaren because you can't go without Piastri. I think Norris is still the contender to win on Sunday. And then you go for McLaren, obviously, because, you know, McLaren. And then you go for Max Verstappen, you go for Red Bull Racing, and then plus 2 drivers. These drivers could be anyone. It could be Perez. It could be Hamilton. I don't think you go for Russell. I think it could, but it could also be Leclerc and Sainz. So I think you pick 2 out of those 4. Now, why not Russell? Because I don't think Russell will have the pace in the race to keep Norris and Leclerc behind him. And in the sprint, starting P2 is not that good if you don't think he's going to stick P2. Like, if he stays P2, yes, that's 7 points. But if he drops 2 positions down, like 2 positions, he gets overtaken by Leclerc and Norris, and you can definitely see that happening, right? That's 4th, and 4th in the sprint gives him 5 points, but he also loses 2 points because he lost 2 positions. That's 3 points. That's 3 points for a P4 in a sprint. That's awful, terrible, completely useless. So I think at that point, like, Hamilton is better than Russell, right? Because Hamilton starting P6, starting P7, can overtake Hulkenberg, who's P6. That's P6 for Hamilton. That's 3 points, plus 1 overtake, plus 1 position gain. That's 5 points. So Russell P4 versus Hamilton P6. Hamilton comes out on top, and I think Hamilton will generally be the better option come the main race as well. So any of the 2 there, but if you have the Limitless, you use it now. There's no reason to wait. Don't even think about any other chip. Just pop it. Limitless is the most powerful chip in the game. You have to use it on a good weekend, and you're not going to get a better opportunity than this. You get Max Verstappen when no one else has him. Like, if you look back in Miami, when a lot of us did use a Limitless, like, there were people who still had Max Verstappen in their teams, right? There were still teams running Max Verstappen, so like the Max Verstappen upside wasn't that great. Now no one has Max Verstappen, and Max Verstappen could be on for a 40+ pointer, and you can be the lone person having that on top of also getting the Norris and the Piastri points. I mean, it's a no-brainer. I think you just go for it, just use the Limitless if you still have it. There's no reason to not do it. And then finally, let's talk to 3X, right? Before the sprint qualifying, I was very much on the side of wait with the 3X. It's too chaotic. It's not surefire. We don't know what's going to happen. Save the 3X for Brazil. But after, I'm more inclined to use the 3X, and I'm actually leaning towards the 3X. I haven't decided yet. I'm going to decide tomorrow on the stream. I'm going to sleep on the decision, but the 3X looks really, really strong. Why? Well, let's go to F1 Fantasy Tools. Favorite website, fantastic website. Ignore the camo ads. I don't know why it's showing that, but let's go to the race results. Just have all the points in there, and let's just look at previous sprint races, right? The points people are getting. I mean, this was a Max Verstappen sweep, right? 58 points, but Paris 40, 36, 34, like high points. Look at Miami, 40, and then down to 33. So way lower in terms of the high point, but like obviously Norris also DNF'd in the sprint, so he would have been on a 45 pointer or higher at least if he hadn't DNF'd there. And then Austria again, some DNFs, yes, for Norris, but 43, 42 points, and then a big drop off. So like, if you can get 2 drivers around 40 points with a triple DRS chip, right? With your 3X, because you have a 3X and a 2X chip. If you can get 2 drivers scoring 40+ points or around that points, right? That's as good as it's going to get. That is the optimal 3X. Getting 2 drivers scoring 40+ points. Now let's play some just mental math. Hey, we can open let's open good old MS Paint, right? Let's take Piastri. In the sprint, he's starting P16. P16 up to, let's say, P8, right? He does all the overtakes himself, gets 1 point. That's 17 points in the sprint. Then let's give him a reasonable qualifying result. Let's say P4. I can definitely see Piastri getting P4 in the qualifying. That's 7 points for the qualifying results. And then let's say literally no overtakes, he stays P4. Right? I don't think that's likely to happen, but I think if he's starting P4, he's more likely to go to like P3, or at least do some overtakes when he pits and stuff like that. So this is like a low ball, right? In the instance where he's starting P4, but let's just say he finishes the race in P4 as well. That's another 12 points. All right, this is 36 points. That is close to like the 40-point mark, right? Now let's take Lando Norris. I think Lando Norris is definitely going to overtake someone in front of him tomorrow in the sprint. Let's say he gets P2. Let's say he overtakes both Russell and Leclerc, But we could even imagine a P3 result. But let's do a P2 for the sake of it, right? The 7 points plus 2 overtakes plus 2. So that is a total of 11 points in the sprint. Then he is at least front row. Let's not give him pole, but let's give him second, right? Let's give him second place in the qualifying. That's 9 points. And I think, let's say Lando Norris wins, right? That's 25 points. Plus an overtake and a position gain, so it would actually be 27 points, right? 27 points. We could even make this 10 points and this 25, but small details. We're just playing with a scenario here that I think is relatively likely, right? 27 points. In this instance, is he getting driver of the day? Potentially. But let's not even think about that. Let's ignore that even as a possibility. Do you see how much point this is? Without driver of the day? It's 47. What more do you want? Why are you not using your 3x, right? Unless you have your limitless, right? Because the limitless I think is more powerful in terms of total points gained over the so you use your limitless so you have it. But like if you have your 3x, if you don't have your limitless, like, and you can afford Norris and Piastri, like just use the 3x. Like, you're not gonna get a better point. And like this is if Norris wins, right? Yes, I know. But like let's just lower Norris's points even. Like let's just say he doesn't Norris, he gets pole, and then he drops 2 positions after a relatively poor race. So let's say he does like an overtake or 2. 15 plus, let's just say he gets a 17 pointer. No driver of the day. Like even in this instance, like this is 38 points. That's close to the max. That's close to what you would expect. Like that's close to the 40 pointer. I mean, like in this instance where Norris gets 3rd and Piastri gets 4th, I mean, yes, Max Verstappen is probably the sweeper. Max Verstappen probably gets 50 points, but this is still close to as good as you can expect. Two separate drivers both getting around 40 points. That is when you want to use the 3x. So for this, like just doing those mental calculations, and again, a DNF ruins you. I get it, but like you can't predict that. And a lot of people are sitting there with double McLaren, and with how they've performed so far this race, like again, even if Norris is just P3, and like, do you see Norris not being on the podium? I don't. And again, I've already talked about this. It looks even in qualifying, and it's been that way all year. And then suddenly, Lando Norris wins with 25 seconds in the race, right? In Singapore and in Zandvoort. So I'm just going to assume that the race pace is still there. And in that case, I mean, we're adding another 10 to that. That's Norris on 57. So I think the 3x is really, really powerful. And I think like you use it here. If you think Norris is fast enough to win, you put the 3x on Norris. And I think that's better than doing it on Piastri. I think the upside for Norris in the race is way higher, right? Because I think he can actually win. I don't think Piastri can win. But like Piastri 4th, you would imagine Piastri gets 4th in that car. And even if he starts like P7, he definitely has the opportunity to overtake people with that race pace. Now, again, we don't know if the McLaren race pace is still as good as it is, but like this is how it's been all year. We've talked about this literally every time. So I think the 3x is strong enough to use it this race, and I'm definitely leaning towards using it with Piastri and Norris. In terms of 3x with other drivers, I mean, if you can get Max Verstappen plus Piastri, I think that's even better than Norris, right? If you can afford Max Verstappen and Norris, God forbid, I mean, you definitely use the 3x, right? But in the instance, like in the scenario that so many of us are in, where we don't have Max Verstappen and we have Norris Piastri, I think the 3x is a no-brainer. And if you're talking about like doing it with Leclerc, with either of these, I think the option isn't as good, right? Compare, like, if you have Piastri Leclerc, do you think Leclerc's winning? Probably not. Maybe he stays P3. Let's do a quick Leclerc calculation, right? So you have Leclerc. You know, say he stays P3, right? He doesn't overtake on Russell, but Lando overtakes him and gets second. That's 6 plus, so that's 7 points in the sprint. Then he qualifies. You know, he's going to be good at qualifying. Maybe he gets a cheeky P2, cheeky P3, you know, top 3 at least. But let's say for the sake of it, like even, you know, in the Norris calculation, you know, I'd put Norris on pole here, but this is Norris on 3rd. Let's say Leclerc wins, right? Or gets pole, and then gets overtaken. This is the instance where Norris wins, right? And then Leclerc is P2. In that case, he would get 17 points with an overtake. Like here, that's 34. I'm not saying it's bad, but it isn't as high as Norris and Piastri's, and I don't think Leclerc has enough pace to win. Maybe he does. Maybe I'm wrong. And maybe this should, this is going to be the funniest video to watch back on in 2 days' time. But I just think the McLaren looks so good. And like again, what was this? This is 34 points. Look at Piastri from P4, 36. So like Norris and Leclerc, I just think Norris Piastri combo, like the triple McLaren, is just too good. And I don't think you get rid of McLaren I don't think you get rid of Piastri at all, because of how well he can perform in the sprint. I mean, again, look at the sprint points. Look at the sprint points. That's 17 points. That's mental for a P8, which I can definitely see happening. So there's a lot of things to think about, but I just really favor the McLaren boys. And yes, maybe the race pace is completely useless and completely dog, but they've been even on qualifying all year. Like, they have not been dominant in qualifying, apart from maybe Singapore, when Norris was like ahead by 3/10, right? But they haven't really been dominating in qualifying, and it just looks even, and the race pace has been so good all year. I can't imagine that not continuing. So I just think the Piastri-Norris combo looks really, really strong, and again, two drivers getting up to upwards of 40 points on a relatively low ball estimate of P2 and P4. And I mean, I haven't even discussed the ceiling. Like, if they won to this, my god, the points they get if they won to it, in the main race, that is, right? And say Norris, say the pace is insane and Norris wins in the sprint qualifying, I wouldn't be surprised if that happened, right? And then Piastri does a decent qualifying result tomorrow, and then ends the race in P2 behind Norris in the main race. You're suddenly sitting with two drivers above 40 points. So yeah, I think if you have the limitless, you obviously use the limitless. But if you have the 3x and you can afford Norris Piastri, I think you use it here. Like, when this is what the double 40 points, right? That's what we talked about. Like, the double 40 is where you want to be. That's what you should expect. Or not expect, but like that's what you're reaching for. If you get two drivers on 40 points on your 3x, that's good. And I think that's definitely doable with Norris and Piastri here, and especially since a lot of us are on that lineup. So yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. I hope you had time to watch it before making your decision. If you want to see what I end up doing, then come to the pre-deadline stream at 1 p.m. Today. I'll see you there. And if not, I'll see you later in the week for my Mexico videos. Thank you so much for watching. Good night. I'm going to edit this and go to sleep. It's 2 a.m. now. Goddamn.